Welcome to a special edition of the Daily Insider here on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers. Happy Selection Sunday. And you're watching on our YouTube channel on Vegas Insider. We appreciate it. Also on Rotogrinders. And we appreciate you tuning in as well. And man, a lot to digest here with the 2021 NCAA tournament. And so much to get to over the next hour. And really looking forward to breaking this thing down. Thom Cunningham is going to join me coming up in just a moment. Also, David Kaplen, known as the Headchopper from Rotogrinders. He's going to come up in about 10 minutes and give us his thoughts on the bracket and the matchups. And at least as of this moment, we have 3 regions already broken down, or at least released. The West, the South, and the Midwest, and the East just released. We'll get to that coming up in a few minutes. And if you are tuning in now, Gonzaga, the number 1 seed overall, number 1 in the West, Arizona, number 1 in the South, Kansas, number 1 in the Midwest, and Baylor, number 1 in the East. And we'll get to the individual matchups in just a few minutes. But let's begin with our friend, Thom Cunningham. You know him as our college basketball insider, also Oscars insider. We're not going to talk about the Oscars tonight. It's all college basketball. He's got all the teams behind him. You see that on the whiteboard. He's a crazy whiteboard guy. And so, Thom, I guess we'll get to all the matchups. But at least from what you've seen through the first few regions, anything stick out to you before we get through the individual matchups?
I mean, not particularly. I think we all expected the number 1 seeds, Gonzaga, Arizona, and Kansas winning the Big 12 tournament kind of solidified that. As you mentioned, the last region is currently being announced. I'm interested to see, I guess Baylor is going to end up getting a number 1 seed. We had talked about whether or not their early exit of the Big 12 tournament was enough to get them out of that 1 seed. It doesn't look like it's going to affect them that much. But there's some really intriguing matchups right off the bat. I know we're going to get into them a little more in detail later, but Davidson, Michigan State is one that's real intriguing. UAB Houston, to me, is pretty intriguing, along with Tennessee Longwood, mainly because UAB and Longwood have really good efficiency ratings, which I'm pretty high on. So there's a lot to look forward to here. And then we didn't even get to Providence, South Dakota State, and a few others. So this is going to be a really parity-riddled NCAA tournament, I think, this year.
Well, let's begin. Let's go through all the matchups. We'll start in the West region. Gonzaga and Georgia State. They're playing on Thursday in Portland, and obviously no surprise, Gonzaga is going to be close to home from Spokane to Portland. Georgia State, who won the Sun Belt, they are one of these teams, Thom. There's about 4 or 5, I guess, the teams from these mid-majors that ended up winning their tournament without being a 1 seed. So obviously Georgia State wasn't one of the best teams in the Sun Belt this year. And it's going to be an unfortunate draw because you're facing Gonzaga in the first round.
Yeah, but they kind of deserve to be facing Gonzaga in the first round. As you mentioned, they weren't the best team this year in their own conference. They just got hot at the right time. I think we talked about this last time on the show. Georgia State has one of the largest win streaks going into this NCAA tournament. I think they've won 10 or 11 games in a row now. So they have momentum, but unfortunately it's going to halt against Gonzaga. I don't think we'll see a UMBC Virginia upset in that matchup.
Now, the winner, presumably Gonzaga, would play Boise State or Memphis. That's a pretty good 8-9 game in Portland, more of a home court advantage for Boise.
Yeah, look, Boise State, I think, really proved a lot of people wrong this year. A lot of people kind of doubted them after the disappointment they had last year not making the tournament, one of the more experienced teams in the nation. Memphis, they kind of were a disappointment to start the year, very injury riddled. They finally got healthy as the year went on. You started to see them win more and more games. And we just mentioned Georgia State had one of the largest winning streaks entering the NCAA tournament. Memphis was right there with them. They lost to Houston in the AAC championship game just now, so that broke up a pretty good win streak that Memphis had. And quite frankly, Memphis had to win their 11 of their last 12, 13 games to get to this point, and they did. So this is going to be an interesting matchup between Boise State and Memphis, 2 teams looking to prove people wrong.
And also with Memphis, they had that slow start to the season. They lost to Georgia. Iowa State ended up getting in. And I still kind of question that because they had a good non-conference and not a great Big 12 season. But they had some questionable losses early, and Penny got them together. And they won some big games. They destroyed Houston towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
And now we'll see. I mean, if Memphis gets out of that, that's going to be an interesting game if they face Gonzaga in the second round.
It will be. And, Memphis, look, they have the talent to beat Gonzaga. It's just, which Memphis team's going to show up. But again, the struggles you mentioned early in the year was a lot of juggling in the lineup with Hardaway because of injuries, and now Memphis is rolling. So if I'm Gonzaga and I have to face Memphis or Boise State for that matter in the second round, that's gonna be a difficult matchup. Two pretty good defensive stout teams there.
Continuing in the West, UConn, New Mexico State, and that game is Thursday in Buffalo, the 5-12. And New Mexico State, it feels like, is in this thing every year, winning the WAC. And UConn, who had a good season with Dan Hurley in the Big East, that a lot of people, I think, are going to circle this as a potential upset. Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't. It is going to be a popular upset pick. New Mexico State almost lives at the 12th seed in this tournament. But I think UConn is legit. I think they're better than New Mexico State. I haven't really dived, too deep into the numbers yet. But looking at it on paper, just my first thought is no, UConn. They're going to be my pick in that one.
So the winner of UConn, New Mexico State plays the winner of Arkansas and Vermont in Buffalo. And Arkansas, who, again, had a slow start in the SEC. They lost the first 3 games and really picked it up. They beat Auburn at home. They ended up losing in the SEC tournament. But Vermont, that's a team that rolled through the America East. But again, we see the class difference to Arkansas and Vermont.
I like Vermont. You know me, I like efficiency ratios. I like a good offensive defensive efficiency rating. Vermont has the 11th highest offensive efficiency rating in the country and the 19th highest defensive efficiency rating. So I'm not going to go out on a limb and say the Catamounts are definitely going to win this game, but covering the spread in a possible upset alert round 1, that is something on my radar for this game.
Alabama, they're the 6th seed, and I don't know how you figure out this Alabama team, Thom, because they beat 3 of the 4 teams that were in the Final Four last year. They had some questionable losses as well. They get that Rutgers-Notre Dame 11 game, which is coming up on that's on Tuesday night, right? Yeah, right.
It's one of the first 4 games. Yeah.
Right. No, I think I'm wrong. I think it's Wednesday night because the San Diego play Friday. So it's Wednesday night. Rutgers and Notre Dame, a couple of Big East rivals, and of course Rutgers in the Big Ten, Notre Dame in the ACC. I'm a little surprised Notre Dame got in the play-in. I call it the play-in game. It is a play-in game in a sense, these 2 11s. But Rutgers also, they had some good wins, but also some questionable losses.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with the Rutgers-Notre Dame play-in game. I don't have an issue with there. Look, they're in, so, that's fine. I don't think this is something similar to a UCLA 11 seed either, where Notre Dame can, they finished second in the conference. I don't see them winning this game against Rutgers and then going on a rampage in the tournament. But they are both deservingly, put, I think, where they should be at the 11th seed. Maybe you could have flipped Michigan and Notre Dame or Rutgers. Michigan's not going to get a play-in game. They're just in, which I find fascinating. But Bama doesn't play defense. That's the main concern with Alabama. It's not really scoring. It's stopping other teams from scoring. So if I'm not mistaken, Alabama has the 261st ranked defensive efficiency in the nation. That's pretty bad. So Alabama could be an upset alert team early. I don't see them really getting past the Sweet 16.
And Alabama, the winner of that, Alabama versus whoever comes out of Rutgers, Notre Dame, it's Texas Tech and Montana State. Texas Tech, who did a great job in the post-Chris Beard era, and they faced Montana State, who came out of the Big Sky. A decent team, but Texas Tech, they had a really good season.
Yeah, they should be fine in this game. I don't really see Montana State as a big upset alert here. None of the red flags pop up for this game in terms of an upset alert. And Texas State is one of the best defenses in the nation. I think they have the 2nd highest rating right now. I'd have to double check that, but Texas State should be fine in this game. I don't see an upset here.
Michigan State and Davidson and Greenville, and we had talked about this, Thom, right when the bracket came out. It feels like a home court advantage for Davidson, and they lost to Richmond. They were the best team in the Atlantic 10 this year. They lost to Richmond in the A-10 title game today. Michigan State with Izzo, they're so all over the place. Michigan State could be in the Final Four, get bounced in the first round.
I don't think they're going to get to the Final Four this year. They just don't have the offensive power to get there this year. Look, they turned it up at the Big Ten tournament, but it's still not enough, I think. And I think Izzo knows that. So I wouldn't just put Davidson in the second round, even though I think Davidson is slightly a little bit better. They've had a better season than Michigan State. But this is going to be a grind. I might actually look at the point total market on this, depending what the line is, because I think picking a winner here, you might as well flip a coin. But you got Izzo versus McKillop, two great coaches, so it should be fun.
Duke and Cal State Fullerton. Cal State Fullerton won the Big West. Duke lost to Virginia Tech in the ACC title game last night. So they send Coach K to Greenville, not far from Duke. And, Duke, I'm going to assume they're going to get through Cal State Fullerton because I don't think K's going to end up losing to Cal State Fullerton as the way to end his career.
I think Duke in the Sweet 16 is a good bet right now. I can't really see him losing any of these teams. Maybe Davidson could get hot and knock him off. Just kind of looking at who's in their bracket outside Texas Tech, I don't know who's going to really stop them offensively speaking. You look at some of the numbers here. Texas Tech clear has the best defense, and Duke has one of the best offenses in the nation. So if those two were to meet, you could be potentially seeing one of the better defenses in the nation versus one of the better offenses. So that should be fun if we get to that. I'm looking at, though, it should be Duke, Texas Tech, honestly. They're two really strong teams. I know Duke had a scare with UNC and Virginia Tech, but Duke still has one of the better efficiency ratings on offense, at least. Defense, a lot to be worked with, but they're one of the most talented teams in the nation still, to me. So we'll see what Coach K can do with his send-off team.
Yeah, imagine if you get Duke and Davidson, and that's all Carolina.
Yeah.
Like, that's just going to be –
would be fun.
Yeah, really. I don't want to say that there's not a home court either way, but, Davidson, they should travel well to play Duke.
Yeah, Cornelius isn't far, so.
All right, let's continue with the regions, but we're going to bring on David Kaplen of Rotogrinders. Headchopper, that's what he's known as. Chop, good to see you. Welcome. Happy Selection Sunday.
Well, I appreciate you having me, guys.
And I guess your initial thoughts on what you saw with the brackets.
Very interesting. I think it's a unique year in that I just like last year, there were some dominant teams, Gonzaga, Baylor, even going into the tournament. And it just felt good about them. This year, I don't really feel good about anybody. Even the top seeds, I see some major flaws in their game. And some of them I really want to bounce out early. And then you look at the matchups, and some of them got some really good draws. So it's interesting. Like Duke, you guys were just talking about Duke. What a great draw. I really wanted to have them going home after the first weekend, but I just can't see them losing to Michigan State if Michigan State ends up getting there. I think Michigan State's a little bit overachieving this year, things like that. So I don't know. It's interesting. I want to see some of these matchups. I want to dig in deeper, but I think there's some really fortunate draws for some top seeds that I thought would be bounced pretty early.
What do you think about Michigan getting in, and not even only getting in, but they don't have to do the play-in game, the 11 seeded play-in game? Do you think they're deserving of getting in against Colorado State in the first round?
No, absolutely not. I was just talking to a friend, or I have a little private chat before show. One guy's an Indiana guy, one guy's a Rutgers guy, and boy, they were steamed. They were steamed at Michigan. I was like, they're barely. I know that's a tough strength of schedule, but you're barely above 500. I thought that was a little shocking that they slid in there, didn't even have to play an elimination game right off the bat like that. And it sets up pretty nicely for that side of the bracket over there for some of the favorites because Michigan. I don't believe in them. I think it's kind of a joke that they got in with that record at that high of a seed.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yep.
Now, looking at that South region, Chop, and we'll go through these matchups. And again, some of them, you look at Arizona. Top seed, they could win the whole thing. Wright State and Bryant, kind of more on that matchup. Wright State was the fourth best team probably in the horizon this year. They had a slow start and then got things going. Bryant won the Northeast. What are your thoughts, at least, on that initial matchup before they are, in a sense, a sacrificial lamb to Arizona?
You know what? I'm not a huge Wright State Bryant. Like I'm not gonna get too much. You're not gonna get too much out of me. I think it's an interesting game. It's a nice playing game. But like you said, the play-ins. Last year I remember the Michigan State and UCLA. A couple of nice programs. Now UCLA ended up winning that game and going on this big run. But like you said, this matchup right here is just a sacrifice for Arizona in that first game. So I don't expect too much. It should be an entertaining game though, but I'm not Tom's probably more of going to be able to dig deeper into that game than I am. That's not up my alley right there.
Thom has seen every Bryant game this year. What are you talking about?
Peter Kiss, baby.
So let's look at a better matchup. The winner of, assuming Arizona knocks them out, this is a really good game. Seton Hall and TCU, and they're playing in San Diego, so really no home court advantage for either team. Both going west. Obviously, Seton Hall going across the country, but TCU, they had that big comeback against Texas in the Big 12 tournament. Then they hung with Kansas. Chop. They were with Kansas in a few of those games towards the end of the season, then it lost in the Big 12 tournament. TCU kind of under the radar team. I feel like Seton Hall is the same. We haven't heard as much about Seton Hall as we had in years past because of what Providence and Villanova did this year in the Big East.
Yeah, I'm probably not as impressed with Seton Hall as maybe this seeding gives them. TCU's fine. They're from a strong conference. I like the way we got, if you're going by KenPom, they're really closely rated, and I get it. But I think TCU's the clear better team here, and I think Seton Hall got a really high, a really favorable seed here. I think they could have been, I don't want to say the borderline first four in, but I wasn't that impressed with Seton Hall, so I really favor TCU in this matchup.
Yeah, it's almost like the committee is holding that Ohio State win at the beginning of this season like really high for some reason. I'm with you. Seton Hall at 8 is a bit high. I want to look at this mid-major matchup that's really intriguing. The bottom left of the bracket, Murray State and San Francisco. Do you think Murray State should have been higher than a 7 seed for the season they had? I also look at their efficiency rating on offense and defense is really, really good. So they're intriguing to me a little bit. And the Dons, I thought early in the year, were really good. They had a good chance of getting in the tournament. Obviously, they got in. But I thought as conference play went on, they kind of fell a little bit. Do you think they're a deserving 10 seed? And what do you think about that matchup?
I think Murray State's a really, really interesting team. I want to say 2 losses all year long, and one of them was to Auburn, who's obviously really good team. I think Murray State's a really good team with an interesting makeup, and I look at them. One thing I don't like about them in the tournament is that they're relatively young. I like the team. I like the makeup. I like everything about them, but they play. I don't even think they have a senior in their starting lineup. A plethora of sophomores. So as good as they are, and if we're going by KenPom, they're a top 30, maybe top 25 team. But I think people may fall for that record. I think they could be primed for an early loss here.
Staying in that East region, and this was one chop that we just got, in a sense, kind of hot off the presses. North Carolina plays Marquette. That's the 8-9 game. Baylor's the 1. They're playing Norfolk State. They'll destroy Norfolk State. Carolina, Marquette. Shaka Smart left Texas. He goes to Marquette. Bit of a slow start in the Big East, and they really turned it on. Up and down finish. They got bounced in the first game of the Big East tournament by Creighton. I feel like a lot of people, they dogged Carolina this year. First year after Roy with Hubert Davis in. Big win over Duke at the end of the year. Do you believe Carolina can make even a little bit of a run here in this tournament?
I do not. I don't think now. The first matchup here, it's definitely winnable. It's Marquette. I think Marquette's an okay team. Not super impressed with Marquette, but I'm certainly not that. North Carolina, they struggle on defense, so I think they're going to have some issues. I think whoever ends up coming out of this matchup, North Carolina, Marquette's going to have an early exit in round 2 against Baylor, but it's a winnable matchup. Teams like North Carolina, they tend to not be high on when I'm filling out my bracket. I won't advance them very far. They don't play a strong enough defense consistently for me.
What upset alert are you most intrigued by, just looking at the brackets at face value when you fill them out as they were being announced? What was the one team that stood out to you where you go, ooh, light bulb went off?
First rounds, it's hard, but if we're looking at like going a little bit further past that, the one that kind of stands out to me is Memphis. I think that they can get past Boise State, and if they do, I think they're good enough to beat Gonzaga, where Gonzaga is a really good inside-out team, and Memphis comes in with Jalen Duren. Now he's only a freshman, so we'll see how he does in the tournament. But they've definitely got the athletes to beat, and we saw what a really good team did to Gonzaga in the finals last year. I think Memphis is a very athletic, good team that goes deep, and can give the inside. Timmy and Chet Holmgren on the inside can have a lot of problems with Jalen Duren and these big guys from DeAndre Williams, like 26 years old, man. It's hard to, it's hard to beat that in tournament when you get that kind of experience. So Memphis, advancing past this first weekend, I think is a very real possibility. That's the first one that jumped out to me that I said, wow, that's definitely an upset alert in round 2.
In that East region, Chop, Purdue's one team that they've had their issues getting through the tournament, and they play Yale in the first game. Texas, Virginia Tech is on the other side of that in Milwaukee on Friday. Texas is 6. We've seen what Chris Beard can do in the tournament at Texas Tech. Texas, it felt like a disappointing 21-11 record, but they play this Virginia Tech team who struggled at times in the ACC, turned it on. They had that game winner against Clemson. They beat Carolina. They beat Duke. And they dominated Notre Dame in that ACC tournament. Virginia Tech, if they get past Texas, they play Purdue. Do you think Virginia Tech has got enough gas in the tank to make a run, or this 4 days in the ACC tournament, they're shot?
Gas in the tank, that's a big deal. That's one I kind of struggle with. I'm a Houston guy, Houston Cougar fan, and we're coming off of 7 games in 15 days. So when do you run out of gas here? I'm not so sure, but I kind of like the teams that more or less underachieved kind of throughout the year and then got hot at the end. Virginia Tech's one of those. So I definitely think they have a run in them. And the reason why I think this is a pretty favorable draw in a way. Texas, I kept waiting all year long. Chris Beard and all this talent he brought in with the transfer portal, and they never really got it going the way I thought that they would. So I think they can be beat in the first round. And then you get to the second round. Kind of surprised Purdue slipped down to the 3 line here. I thought they'd be even higher, but I think they're primed to get beat early in this tournament. So I think Virginia Tech, if they can get past Texas, whoever gets past that game is, I think, going to beat Purdue. I like the story. It's fun to watch big 7'4" guy out there, and Jaden Ivey's a great young player, but I think they're primed. They don't play, again, a team that doesn't play a ton of great defense. I think they can be beat in the second round by whoever advances in that Texas-Virginia Tech matchup. Virginia Tech hot. Texas hadn't really stepped up the way I thought they would. So Virginia Tech's definitely a threat to get to the Sweet 16.
There weren't a ton of bid stealers this year. Last year, there were a ton. This year, there weren't many, but there was one, and it was actually today in Richmond. And ironically, like Oregon State, they're a 12 seed. They were a team that was a 6 seed that shouldn't have won the conference tournament. They have a prolific scorer in Gilliard, as Oregon State had with Ethan Thompson. Richmond has a big man like Oregon State did. I see some similarities there, but I also think South Dakota State is a pretty dangerous team for Providence. What is your make of that part of the bracket where Iowa faces Richmond and South Dakota State is going to take on Providence?
Yeah, Richmond's interesting. Gilliard comes out and plays like 40 minutes. I don't think he ever comes off the court. I think he plays 40 minutes a game here in the big game. So will that get to him? That's your number one guy. Will that get to you here in this kind of a format? We'll see. Obviously it didn't affect him in the conference tournament, but that whole side of the bracket there, South Dakota State, probably fodder for Providence. Providence moves on. Richmond, I think, gets bounced here. And it brings up, I'm glad you brought up that side, Iowa. Man, they fit the criteria of a team that can make a deep run. I like them. I liked them when I first saw the brackets. I like them now. They're hot. They just won their tournament. They've got a really good makeup, man. When you have guys front court guys who can step out to the 3-point line and do that, it creates tough matchups. Keegan Murray, just a dynamic player. Like I think that they're set up to make a deep run, and if we go even further past that, and it's way down the road, but if the number 1 seed in that bracket is Kansas, I think that they're good enough to beat Kansas.
Now, I want to go back to something, talk about Virginia Tech for a minute, Chop, about teams that, you talk about momentum, teams that win their tournament like Iowa did, and going to a team like Baylor, let's just say. I mean, forget about Norfolk State. I'm saying making a run. Baylor lost early in the Big 12. Kentucky went 1-1 in the SEC tournament. Looking at some of these big teams that lost early, do you think that's an advantage for them, getting a little more rest, not playing 3 games in 3 days? I think Duke, the funniest thing about Duke is they made it to the ACC championship and they have nothing to show for it. They still got in, but they didn't even win the title. They played all those games. Do you think teams like the good teams that got bounced early have an advantage because they are a little fresher?
Man, that's a great question. That's one I personally I don't know. I struggle with that thought. Like, it's good to have a little momentum. You know, it's always I probably valued here recently, the recent years. I probably valued winning that conference tournament a little bit more than I used to. I used to think, get you a couple extra days rest, but really, you're going to get a few days off. These guys, I mean, we treat them like they're in an 82 game NBA schedule, but they're like 18, 19, 20 years old. They'll be all right after a few days. So yeah. I like to win that tournament, get a little momentum. But when you get a team like Kentucky, it's okay. I mean, they've got the makeup who can deeper. I don't think it's going to affect them one way or another, whether they would have won the tournament, played 3 straight games, or whether they get bounced in the first round. It doesn't matter. A team like that has the makeup to get there. So a team like we just talked about, Iowa, I think that's really good to get that confidence up. Like, maybe you don't know if you can hang with some of these other guys. Now you know. So a team like that, I think, is good to make a deep run in their conference tournament. A team like Kentucky, it doesn't matter if you get bounced early. I think they know we've got the type of team that can win this whole thing.
Now, you mentioned Keegan Murray. So I'm going to kind of get into this Wooden topic here. Looking at that side of the bracket, you've got a lot of Wooden watch players over there. Let's see. You've got Johnny Davis for Wisconsin and the Badgers. You've got Jabari Smith for Auburn and the Tigers over there. Which Wooden Award watch player is most crucial to their team in this tournament? Is it Oscar for Kentucky? Is it David Roddy for Colorado State? Which Wooden Award player has to step up big time in order for their team to find success, similar to like what Dwayne Wade did with Marquette years ago?
Yeah, boy, it's a good one. There's a lot of them. You mentioned Tshiebwe. I think he's a monster. Like, for what Kentucky does, obviously you can't afford to not go with him. But if you lost a guy like that, you still have so many weapons. So ultimately, I think I'm going to lean towards what you just said. The guy you just mentioned, Johnny Davidson for Wisconsin. I thought that when I saw him earlier in the year, I thought, okay, this guy's got a lot of Jalen Suggs in him. Like, he's that good, and he can carry a team. So, and I'm looking at the way that their bracket, the way they're set up here. Like, okay, get past Colgate, 3-14 matchup. LSU without a coach, Iowa State, they can advance to the Sweet 16. And then what are they going to get? Well, potentially a matchup with Auburn, who can't really seem to get it together away from home. So you could get to the Elite Eight, and then you never know. So I think it's a team that can go deep, and they only do it if Johnny Davidson, like some of these other teams, they can lose their number one. I mean, you talk about Houston, we saw it. They lost their number one, and maybe their number two, and they're still right here in the mix. A lot of these teams can get past it. Wisconsin, definitely, they might get bounced in the first round without Johnny. And with him, I think they're looking at Elite Eight type of stuff here.
So some of the lines are starting to come in as we speak. Some Vegas books, DraftKings, they always come in early. I have a couple numbers here, Chop and Thom, I want to just put out for you. I'm not going to give you all of them, but just a couple. Arkansas laying 5.5 against Vermont. Connecticut laying 7 to New Mexico State. Carolina laying 4 to Marquette. Not really shocked there, but I'll give you this one too. I'm going to go through all of them, but Michigan laying 3 to Colorado State. How surprised are you with that one?
I'm not surprised. The Big Ten is going to get a lot of respect usually, so I'm not surprised with that. And I think it's about in line. I look at that, and that doesn't make me want to take either team right off the bat, either way. So I think it's a pretty fair line. Vermont, that's an interesting one. I think Vermont is a really solid team, and I think that's an interesting line that you mentioned.
Yeah, I like Vermont's efficiency rating, and I will say for the Colorado State Michigan, I'm more interested in that point total. I like the under. Usually with Colorado State and Michigan, they like to go under, so I'm kind of interested in the point total for that game.
Yeah, and a couple other games to look at as far as lines coming out. Iowa laying 10 to Richmond, San Diego State laying 2 to Creighton, and Providence laying 1.5 to South Dakota State. And that's another matchup, guys, that everyone talked about, Chop, with Providence. They're lucky. Somehow they win all these games. They're lucky. But South Dakota State, they went through the Summit League. Granted, Summit's not the Big East, but 20-0. They won the Summit League. They shoot a lot of threes. They'll go up and down the court. Do you think that's a game there? It's in Fort Worth, so really no home court advantage for either team. Do you think that's one where South Dakota State could pull off the surprise?
Tough one. I obviously anybody can pull off a shocker here, but I think probably maybe Providence gets a little bit, because of the things you mentioned, they get a little bit less respect than they deserve. And they skated through the year, a 25-win team in a relatively tough conference. So I'll probably have a little bit more interest in them than South Dakota State.
Which 11 seed do you like the most? I don't think we're going to see anything that we saw with UCLA last year, because I just felt that team was just insanely stacked. I don't see any of the 11 seeds that stacked. But I look at Indiana with Trace Jackson Davis. I feel like he can take over if he needs to. But Wyoming is really good. They got a good big man themselves. So which of those 11 seeds do you like the most? Do you see going the furthest? Not that they will go far, but of those four, which do you like the most?
Yeah, they're 11 seeds, not super impressive, but Indiana, I do think Indiana's playing really good right now. They had to fight to get into the tournament. Sometimes that builds that momentum. Like you said, they got the inside game with Trace Jackson. They've got the point guard, a feisty veteran point guard, and I think they play good defense. That's the one good thing I like about the tournament teams that I'm looking for to make a deep run. Can you bear down on defense and get big stops? And Indiana definitely can play some defense under Mike Woodson. So I think ultimately that's a team in the 11th spot probably got the best chance of making a run.
And do you think coaching is huge in this event? I mean, I know the sport is almost, a popularity between coaches more than the players, where the coaches are almost superstars. You mentioned Mike Woodson. How important is he going to be in this tournament? Is good coaching? How much do you value that when you're filling out your bracket?
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. I mean, there's a reason why you kind of don't see a lot of teams they could be stacked talent-wise, and they just kind of get bumped out. You see a lot of teams get bumped up. It's because you got out-coached a lot of times, and I think it is a big thing. So I definitely – now when you're talking about the early matchups, 116, 215, whatever, talent's going to win out. But that's a good tiebreaker down the road when you start looking at, man, who do you want to advance in your brackets or what have you. Coaching is definitely a major tiebreaker for me.
Now, another game I want to look at, Chop, is LSU Iowa State, because LSU, they had the issues with Will Wade. He's gone now. You have an interim head coach. We mentioned Iowa State earlier, who was one of the biggest surprises in the country in non-conference play. And then you play Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, all these teams in the Big 12. You get humbled a bit, and they're obviously not there yet. They're improved, but they're not there yet. But how much do you think it's going to affect LSU with all these issues they've had? I feel like they had these issues for a few years with Will Wade, but now they finally get rid of him right before the tournament.
Didn't understand that one. It's a pretty good team. They got a pretty good roster there. They got some nice guys in that front court with Eason and Days. I think they're talented. Xavier Pinson in the backcourt, a senior. I think they had a lot of makings of a team that could win a few games in the tournament. I don't know why they did that. So I think it is a big deal. We just talked about coaching. And so I think that when you have an interim coach and you certainly don't know what to expect, I can't see it being an upgrade at this point in the season. So I think they can win. They win that first matchup. Despite that, I'm not a big fan of teams that have a freshman out there to ball handle a lot like Iowa State. So I definitely think LSU can get there, but I think they had a deeper run in them. I didn't understand that coaching change at this point in the year.
Which 2 seed is the most dangerous to you?
Let me glance over them. Okay, that one, don't like that one. Let me take a look at it real quick. I don't know who the
I guess is that one Auburn?
That one, I don't like. That one was let me see here. Villanova. I'm not. And Auburn, yeah, they're a little bit shaky. Oh, I got you. The best 2 seed out there is Kentucky.
Okay.
They got the total. In fact, I don't want to give too much away. They might be my pick to win it all. I don't want no spoilers just yet, but they've got like we mentioned, we talked about a superstar in the middle. Toshibwe can just rebound with anybody. They've got experience. They've got athleticism on the wings. Good coaching. They've got the total package if they can put it together.
Well, here's the other one too, guys. Okay, so Kentucky plays St. Peter's in the first round. You get the winner of Murray State. Sorry, St. Peter's. You get the winner of Murray State and San Francisco. Two good mid-majors. Murray State was 30-2. San Francisco 24-9 out of the WCC. Then, if you could get through that, it's either Texas, Virginia Tech, Purdue, Yale. I don't know who you trust out of that. I mean, I agree with you, Chop. It's not crazy, and that's the Baylor region. It's not crazy to think Kentucky could get out of that one.
Yeah, I mean, they were one of the teams I looked at before we even saw the brackets. I said they got the makings because of some of the things I mentioned. So they had it, and then this is a favorable draw for them. So I'm on board with Kentucky.
Yeah, they have a good efficiency ratio. Their offense is ranked 15th in the nation, and their defense is 48th. So they're up there in terms of one of the teams that play good basketball on both sides of the court, not just dominant on offense or not just dominant on defense. Like you see with some schools, like San Diego State has the best defense in the country, but their offense is like ranked in the 200s. So I think Kentucky, they've got a good shot. I'll tell you what, St. Peter's, those fans in New Jersey, they're gonna have to find somewhere else to bet on the Peacocks because they can't bet on New Jersey schools there. Unfortunate for them. They're gonna miss out on a deep run by the Peacocks.
Very true. My friend, I got a friend in New York. He deals with that. He couldn't bet on Hofstra, so he's upset.
Well, Chop, we appreciate your time and your insight with all of this. So I guess where can people find you on Rotogrinders and social media to get more information this week from you?
Well, on Twitter, follow me at Headchopper right there on the screen. You got it. That'll get you to my Twitter stuff on RG. We'll be shooting a couple of shows before the Thursday tip-off, before the Friday tip-off for our daily fantasy action, breaking down some players we like. So hop on over to Rotogrinders, look for the YouTube link for the college basketball shows, and I'm hanging around all the time, man.
Well, Chop, we appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Later on, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. There is Mr. Headchopper, David Kaplen. I like some of the things that he said. And you know what, Thom, because we kind of when we got on the air, we had the first three regions, and I really didn't get to, in a sense, digest the East region. And that one we're going to go over here.
Have you digested it?
Now I've eaten the whole thing, and it tasted pretty good.
Just wait 30 minutes.
So this game, this is a throwaway. Should we even talk about this? Baylor, Norfolk State. I mean, it's just a class difference there.
Yeah, I mean, Baylor should be fine there. Norfolk, though, this is their second straight appearance in the tournament. Are they UMBC? No, they're not. They shouldn't win that game. So
no, Baylor's got too much firepower now. But this is the game we had mentioned before, this Carolina Marquette game, and
you really like this game.
You know what? I don't think either can beat Baylor. Is that fair to say that?
Yeah, I think Marquette has a better chance than UNC, but they're too young. Marquette, they're just riddled with youth.
Man, a lot of people. I mean, am I crazy? A lot of people gave Hubert Davis and Carolina a little too much crap this year. It feels like. I mean, they beat Duke at the end, and everyone said, "Oh well, Duke, they weren't focused in that last game." Blah blah blah. Because Duke went into Chapel Hill and destroyed Carolina the first time before Carolina won it at Cameron. But I guess because Carolina didn't have any good wins this year until beating Duke.
I think UNC had consistency issues, which I think is fair for what they are, which is a really talented team going through a new transitional phase period with their program and a coach. So like the traction's not quite there yet because it's the first year for Davis and his style and his philosophies and how he runs practice, how he handles the program. And then you have the talent with UNC there as well. So I think what you get is a lot of inconsistency. Like you get flashes of good UNC, then you get flashes of UNC that's just not thinking right, and their mind's not in the game, or they're just going cold for some reason. They can't find a way to win games when they're not, hitting their shots. So I think it's a little bit of both, where you have a program going through a new phase, but the talent is still there. So it's a bit tricky to pin exactly what they are when they step on the court each night or afternoon.
Yeah, we'll find out the TV listings and all that coming up in a little bit. It's going to be on True TV this week. So St. Mary's, they're a 5. They play the winner of Wyoming and Indiana. Now, Indiana beat Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. You would think that would mean something, but yet Indiana gets relegated to this extra game and Michigan gets in. Like, I kind of feel like Michigan blew that game. Shouldn't they be in this 12-12 game instead of Indiana?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think our Headchopper friend Dave hit the nail on the head with it. I was right there with him. I don't understand how Michigan's even in this tournament, let alone what you just mentioned, why they would not be in the play-in situation here. I haven't looked at the snubs yet. I have a feeling there aren't many.
Wake Forest, BYU,
Xavier, maybe.
Yeah. Xavier blew it. They should have been in. They blew it at the end.
I'm not even sure Wake should be in it after what they ran a hot Boston College team. So I don't know. I feel like Wake would be the only team that you could take Michigan out and put in. I honestly think Michigan's better than BYU this year. I thought BYU blew a bunch of games this year. So they shouldn't be in. Florida we don't get into, and Xavier, they blew a bunch of stuff too. So
Florida,
I guess when you look at it, Michigan could be in there, but I don't know. It just feels weird that they're not in the play-in game. That's just me.
It's kind of one of those things that you have teams that were so, I don't want to say mediocre. Michigan's not mediocre, but teams that were not great as opposed to great teams left out. I feel like you had to fill out the bracket, and it's like, okay, we got to fill a couple extra in. So Michigan, you're named, you get in. Think about this. Michigan, Rutgers, Indiana. Rutgers, Indiana are in the play-in games, and Michigan was an 11 seed. So you have 3 named teams. Well, Rutgers, but like 3 Big Ten teams, Big Time Conference that are in that 11-12 area.
Yeah, Notre Dame, ACC as well.
Yeah, and Notre Dame was second in the ACC for most of the season. We had a comment up here on our YouTube channel. Notre Dame was number 2. Oh, that's another one. You know who didn't get in?
Who?
Which you think about it now, I thought they were a lock. It was Texas A&M.
Oh, wow. You're right. They did't get in. Yeah.
They ended the season.
Yeah.
Texas A&M ended the season winning 4 or 5 straight. They beat Alabama on the road.
They deserve to be in over Michigan. Yeah.
And then they ended up making it to the SEC championship. Granted, they're down 14-0 to Tennessee today, but they beat Auburn. They beat Arkansas. They went over Florida in overtime.
Yeah, they've had good wins in the regular season too. Their out-of-conference schedule was insanely weak, though, and I think that was the downfall when it's all said and done. Michigan played a better out-of-conference schedule. They didn't necessarily win those games, but they tested themselves. And sometimes the committee thinks that if you're on the bubble and you set your schedule up to be tougher than the team that you're competing against in the bubble, then you're going to get the edge regardless of what your record is, regardless of what you do in the conference tournament. That's the only logic I can see there. But I do remember at the beginning of the year, because Texas A&M, if I'm not mistaken, they were 8-0, I think, to start the year, 7-0, something like that. But it was against cupcakes. It was against cupcake teams. So I guess we're seeing where the committee's coming from here. Load up your schedule, and win or lose doesn't really matter as long as you look good trying, I guess, is how it goes.
So Texas A&M, 43rd in KenPom. Iowa State, 48th in KenPom.
I'm fine with Iowa State just because their beginning of the year was so good. They beat a bunch of good teams out of conference. Texas A&M, not so much. So sorry, KenPom, I don't agree with you there.
Here, we could put this up now on the screen, Tom. Hang on 1 second. Let's do this. Here we go. Oh, hold on. I got to blow this up a little bit. Sorry, everyone. There we go. Now everyone can see it. All right. So here's some opening numbers. Try to make this a little clearer. Should I make? Here, hang on 1 sec. Not first time working a computer, but there we go. It's a little better. Okay. Sorry, we got this. Work in progress. We're live. Okay. So here's some opening numbers, and Gonzaga's from scoresandodds.com, our friends at scoresandodds.com. Gonzaga, 27-point favorites against Georgia State, high total of 148.5. Memphis laying 3.5 as a 9 against Boise. That tells you a lot, right?
I guess I'm eyeing that Colorado State under 139.5 down there. I like that. Probably take the under on that one.
I mean, is it crazy to think that? And I'm with Headchopper on that one. I believe Memphis can beat Gonzaga. Maybe like why is that nuts?
Oh, for sure. Memphis was ranked 15 to start the year, and then they were decimated with injuries. Then they got healthy and they ended up winning 11 of 13 games. So I'm right there with both of you. I think Memphis can beat Gonzaga. Whether I pull the trigger or not is a whole nother thing. And Boise State will have something to say about that. They are a good team. They won the Mountain West, which was not a joke this year. The Mountain West got 4 teams in this year. It was a tough conference at the top. So that's going to be interesting. I think Gonzaga's got their hands full in round 2. But to win against Georgia State by 27, good luck, Chuck, with that one. That's a lot of points.
UConn laying 7 to New Mexico State. Arkansas laying 6.5 to Vermont. Arkansas struggled in that first round last year before they pulled away.
Yeah, I like Vermont. Good efficiency rating. I'll probably take them to cover the 6.5, honestly.
All right. This is the West region. Texas Tech laying 16.5 against Montana State. And that Texas Tech team is pretty good. So Chris Beard, I don't blame him for going to Texas, but still Texas Tech did a pretty good job even without him this year. Yeah,
they did. And where's Texas Tech? The thing that concerns me about Texas Tech, though, is the offense. The defense is the second best in the nation, but the offense ranks 135th. Now you're taking on Montana State, who has the 47th best offense in the nation. So that's going to be put to the test against Texas Tech. The defense is probably going to come out on top for the Red Raiders, which should indicate something with the point total. I don't think the point total is up there quite yet, but maybe look towards the under for that, and maybe for under for total team points for Montana State too, taking on a top 2 defense in the nation.
Michigan State's laying 1.5 to Davidson, and Duke is laying 19 to Cal State Fullerton.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, Davidson, it always goes back to that old argument, Thom. Davidson, the Atlantic 10, somebody put this out there, that there are, we say majors, mid-majors, and then the sub-majors or the low majors, whatever you want to call them. But you have the majors of the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, the Pac-12, Big 12, all that. But then there's like this group, like the American, Atlantic 10, the Mountain West, and then you go a little lower to Conference USA, Sun Belt, WAC, all of those. That the best team in the Atlantic 10 versus the 7th best team in the Big 10.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like when you're buying alcohol, you have top shelf, middle shelf, bottom shelf, different drinks. That's kind of what it's like with these conferences. Some people would even argue where's the Big East? Would that be the elite? I would put them at the top.
I would. The Big East deserves to be in there. You have Villanova. I mean, you have an elite team year in and year out in Villanova. Now, Gonzaga is an elite team, but there's not enough in that conference to balance out. Where the Big East still has good schools in this. The Big East would be in that top.
I agree. I think the Big East would be above the American. Yeah, I'd put him with the Power 5. So it'd be the Power 6 in college basketball with the Big East, honestly. I do think the Mountain West is interesting, though. We've talked about the Mountain West prior to the show for really most of the college basketball season, and we kept saying, is this a conference that's going to have 4 teams get in? This was an interesting conference because you had a lot of bubble teams such as Texas A&M, Michigan, Indiana, Rutgers, but you had this group of Mountain West teams, and not to mention, you mentioned the A10. They've got 2 teams in now because Richmond took a bid. So I think the Mountain West is a bit interesting with the group that got in. I think that's a dangerous group. But the one thing with the Mountain West schools that are in is they're defensive minded, most of them, if not all of them. So when you look at Colorado State, you look at San Diego State, and you look at Boise State, I advise you look at the point total more than you do the spread when you're betting these games, because the Mountain West, these teams have low point totals, but they tend to go under. Look at the conference tournament games. You had Colorado State and San Diego State on the same day win games with 53 total points. And that's kind of the trend with these schools. So physical defensive teams in the Mountain West, they're good, and they got 4 teams in. So watch out for that conference.
Yeah, those games were ugly. I mean, you had like 55, 53 games. I mean, you had 119 totals that still didn't even threaten.
I think my theory is, you go to Colorado, you run around so much in that thin air, you just, you lose stamina quick. So I don't know. It's the science in me.
It's got to be something there. Do you have any faith in I mean, only a couple of these are out, but these big spreads, I always like staying away from these games, these 116s, 215s, because it's just about, you're not trying to, who's going to win the game. It's about who's going to stay within the number.
Yeah.
Is there a 15 or a 16 seed? Delaware, Jacksonville. I mean, Jacksonville State didn't even win their own conference. They got in because that silly rule in because Bellarmine couldn't get in.
Yeah.
But Delaware, Cal State, Fullerton, Georgia State, Jacksonville State, who was it? Norfolk State, any of St. Peter's, any of those you think can hang within the number?
I would like to see what the Wright State Bryant number is against Kansas. I think that would be interesting, but right off the bat, no. I'm not sure. I maybe Georgia State. 27 is too much. It really is too much. Even 20, Norfolk State, maybe those two. I think when you start touching 20-point spreads, that's a bit ridiculous. But other than that, I would say no, not really. I think that Purdue 17.5 against Yale is a little bit more interesting than any of the ones or twos. I mean, Yale, I would think, should be able to contend 17.5 points with Purdue. But I think we're going to have to wait for more lines to come out. But I think Wright State Bryant, I'm really intrigued to see what that line is, whoever comes out of that game when they take on Kansas. Because Wright State, we've mentioned before, they've been here in the tournament before. So they're not, this isn't a new moment for them. And Peter Kiss for Bryant, he's capable of going, 7 of 8 beyond the arc and dunking, 5 times in the game. So I think that's going to be a little bit more interesting when we find out who comes out of Wright State Bryant.
What about this game, Tom? This Murray State, San Francisco, the 7-10 here, right here on the bottom left.
Mm-hmm.
Murray State laying 1.
That's fair.
Let me see if this line moved at all. I mean, we see here in scores and odds, Murray State laying 1. I mean, if I refresh it, it's probably going to change. San Francisco is now laying 1. So San Francisco is the 10 out of the WCC. They are a slight favorite in this game. Murray State 30-2, but the problem with Murray State is 27th in Ken Palm, beat Memphis back in December, but coming out of the Ohio Valley, Belmont, that's probably the best team you face because everyone else you took care of.
I mean, Morehead State's pretty good. I mean, they had an okay year this year. They were, they weren't, obviously they're not Murray State, but Morehead State was, competitive to some degree this year. But I know Dave wasn't big on Murray State, but they're efficient and I know they're young. I don't know. I think there's a lot to like about them. Now, they did not get matched up well because they've got Kentucky waiting for them if they happen to get past San Francisco. So, prior to the brackets being revealed, I was in my mind thinking Murray State is probably going to go pretty far in my brackets. That's not the case anymore. That is short-lived. So if they lost San Francisco, I wouldn't be surprised, but it is unfortunate they have to take on Kentucky, presumably take on Kentucky in round 2 because Murray State has, I have the numbers in front of me, they have one of the best efficiency. Here it is. They have the 6th best offense and the 12th best defense in the nation in terms of efficiency ratings go. So I wanted to take them to go far, but you take on San Francisco in round 1 and possibly Kentucky round 2. That's going to be tough for the Racers despite winning 30 games this year.
Yeah, let's look at the other side, the bottom right. Here's another matchup we have not discussed. USC and Miami. That's going to be a good football game coming up.
Yeah.
This was like the 90s. 7-10. That's in Greenville. So USC's got to go across the country. And the Trojans a short favorite over the Hurricanes.
Yeah, Andy Enfield's used to coaching in Florida, so should be all right. Well, they're playing against so it's in Greenville. Yeah. Not a big travel for Miami. I don't think that's going to matter too much. USC to me is a slightly better team. Isaiah Mobley is the best player on the court between those two teams. But this is a coin flip. If push comes to shove, I'm taking USC in this game. I just think that they're a little bit more efficient in terms of the ratings go. And I trust Mobley. I trust Peterson a little bit more than McGusty and some of the other players on Miami. I'll tell you what, though, between Enfield and what's his name?
Jim Larinaga.
Yeah, and Larinaga, I think this is going to be a fun coaching matchup, 7-10 here between USC and Miami. Two coaches I really, really enjoy.
Here's what I didn't get as far as look, Villanova playing in Pittsburgh. I get that they're a 2 seed, fine. Wisconsin playing in Milwaukee against Colgate, and then getting the winner of LSU and Iowa State. LSU is a mess. Iowa State, not sure if they're a tournament team. Man, Wisconsin's got a nice little road if they get past Colgate to get to the Sweet 16. They got basically two home games.
Yeah. The health of Johnny Davis, I think, comes into play here because he got a little banged up at the end of the year. But you really like Wisconsin's setup here in the brackets. As you mentioned, LSU, they're without Will Wade. Now, I don't think that, like, it will affect LSU. I don't think it's going to crush them, though. Like, I would still expect LSU talent-wise to get by Iowa State, regardless who's coaching them in that game. But Isaiah Brockington is a name that no one's really brought up yet for Iowa State. He is very capable of going off any night. He's one of the better players in the country, not talked about enough. So I would watch out for Isaiah Brockington. But other than that, Wisconsin should be, they should be all right getting to the Sweet 16 or Elite Eight.
Let's look at some of the other matchups here on the page. We talked about Providence a little bit. Let's scroll back up. Let's see which ones we may have missed. How about what do you think of Illinois? They played Chattanooga. Chattanooga had that game winner to win their conference tournament and win the SoCon. And Illinois, they play potentially if they get past Chattanooga. We can't say that outside the 1 and the 2. We can't guarantee anybody 3 or lower saying they're going to move on. We can't do that anymore. 1 and 2, I think it's pretty safe. But those 2 games, Illinois-Chattanooga, let me scroll up a little bit, in the upper right corner. Illinois-Chattanooga, Houston, and UAB. Houston-UAB, a couple old Conference USA teams meeting up. UAB still in Conference USA. But what do you think about those 2 matchups? They're playing Pittsburgh on Friday.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to have a tough time picking the Sweet 16 winner out of this part of the bracket here because this is pretty difficult. I might end up going Illinois here. Trent Frazier is going to really have to, play well. Curbelo is going to have to play really well for Illinois to advance because Chattanooga's coming. They got a big man who can match with Kofi Coburn. I think Coburn should be fine overall, but this is not going to be a cakewalk for Illinois by any means. Chattanooga's built very nicely. We've talked about them a few times in the past. And then, look, UAB, they have one of the highest efficiency ratios in the country. They're coached by Adam Kennedy, which I did not know about until midseason this year. So they have an experienced coach there. The one thing that worries me a little bit about UAB was at the end of one of their games in the Conference USA tournament, the one that went to 3 overtimes, I think it was. They got
Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, they got a few technicals. So mentally, I'm not sure UAB I trust. And then Houston, a little injury riddled for my liking, but look, they look fine. So I'm going to have to do some deep diving, but between Houston, Illinois, I think they should be fine. Overall, they should be fine. But UAB and Chattanooga will scare them. And, I would look at the spreads because they have a very good chance of covering the spread, if not winning those games as underdogs.
I want to go to one other two. We talked about USC. Let's look at UCLA for a second. They are right there on the left against Akron, laying 15. And Akron beat Kent State to win the MAC. And if you saw, Kent State had that issue with some of the players got suspended going into the championship game. And, Akron's still decent mid-major, but UCLA, who went to the Final Four last year, and now you go from an 11 seed that had to, get out of the first game and then get through the tournament. They play Akron in Portland, so a bit of an advantage there. Look, UCLA, Tom, you win that game, you play either St. Mary's, Wyoming, or Indiana. It's not crazy to think UCLA can make a little bit of a run.
No, I actually like UCLA as an Elite Eight pick when you're looking at the brackets here. Excuse me. So St. Mary's, they really just play good defense. They're not a prolific scoring team. They play good defense, but I can't see them getting past UCLA. This is, pretty much the same UCLA team. You got Juzang, Tiger Campbell, Jacquez Jr., Jules Bernard, Cody Riley. There's no reason to not like UCLA. Then you look at their bracket. They should get by Akron. They should get by St. Mary's and whoever they have to end up playing. They're better than all those teams up there in the play-in games. They're better than UNC. They're better than Marquette. And I think they can beat Baylor. That's a coin flip of a game right there. So, honestly, UCLA has a pretty golden road to get to the Sweet 16. And then it depends – can you win the big game against whoever you have to face in the Elite Eight? But I think they should be fine against Akron. And then if they have to face St. Mary's or the winner of the play-in game, I think UCLA should be fine. Same team as last year.
One other game I want to get to, and then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah.
Ohio State and Loyola Chicago. You see on that bottom right, they would get the winner of Villanova, Delaware, presumably Villanova. But Loyola Chicago, who, again, their coach leaves for Oklahoma. Fine. I mean, it's a better job. You can't blame them. But they still end up winning the what conference are they in?
Missouri Valley.
Missouri Valley. I feel like I was blanking for a second. I was going to go Horizon.
It gets confusing with the Horizon, the OVC, the MVC.
They're all kind of the same.
They're all in the Valley.
So Loyola, who plays a lot of low-scoring games, that's right, Arch Madness. That's right. They won in St. Louis. That was the first one. Yeah. Ohio State really was so all over the place towards the end of the season. They lost to Nebraska at home. Yeah. Ohio State got bounced early in the tournament last year. This doesn't feel like a very favorable matchup for the Buckeyes.
It doesn't, but E.J. Liddell is good. Ohio State has the players to just go off and really win any game. Like, if Ohio State went to the Elite Eight, I wouldn't be surprised. But if they lost to Loyola Chicago, I wouldn't be surprised. You kind of hit the nail on the head. They've been all over the place this year. They've looked like a top 15 team. They've looked like a team that doesn't belong in the top 25. They lost to Penn State. They lost to Nebraska. They lost to Seton Hall. But they've had a lot of good wins too. So when you're filling out brackets, at least for me, I mean, when you look at these brackets, I almost want to go from the inside out, filling them out. And I'm not sure I'd have Ohio State going to the Elite Eight or the Sweet 16. So if you want to put Loyola Chicago as a first-round upset, I think that's fair. I think that's fine. And look, the point spread is not large at all. So obviously odds makers feel that this is a game the Ramblers can win. And who knows? If enough people bet on them, the line might flip from now. So we shall see. But I don't know what to make of Ohio State. I trust them and I don't trust them. So I might just leave them alone this year in the brackets.
Now, before we get off, I have to just fill you in on this one thing. And I've been kind of cracking a smile a little bit, Thom, just because. And you're going to say, what's so funny? Why are you laughing? And it has nothing to do with what you're saying, but it has to do with this one thing, which is so freaking ridiculous right now. Guess who's coming back?
Dave.
This guy.
He's unretiring?
He's unretiring. This is true story coming from his Twitter feed. He's coming back for a 24th season. These past 2 months, I've realized my place is still in the field and not in the stands. That time will come, but it's not now. I love my teammates. I love my supportive family. They make it all possible. I'm coming back my 23rd season in Tampa. Unfinished business. LFG. Let's effing go.
Wow. LFG.
Hold on a second. We got to bring on a special guest for a minute. This freaking guy.
He's back, baby. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, going to get him probably on the Great Day Nation podcast because he was going to be retired, and now he's got to play again.
Is that a Tom Brady hat?
TB12 right here. Supporting the brand. My guy, TB12. He's not done. He needs another ring. He needs 10. He's got 7. He's close, guys.
Are you a Buccaneer fan now?
Should I get my Bucs hat? I'm a Tom Brady fan.
You guys are so embarrassing, you New England people, you know.
Yeah, he's back. Let's go. Happy Sunday.
Don't you have Mac Jones as your quarterback?
Mac, let's worry about the Pats tomorrow, okay? Let's celebrate. Look, he was retired for 40 days. You know who else was gone for 40 days and rose from the dead? Jesus Christ. Our Lord and Savior, Thomas, Edward, Brady.
Who would have thought that Tom Brady would bust the brackets before anybody?
Hey, Thom, don't you think this was a little bit planned? You thought about this today. Yeah. You could have done this yesterday or tomorrow. You say, you know what? CBS is revealing all the brackets. I think it's time I come out and say I'm coming back.
We don't have time to get into my conspiracy theories, but there's a reason one piece of NFL news breaks one time a day the past week.
Ooh, I like this.
To get into the news.
You know what that is, guys? It's this thing. It's the don't forget about us. Major League Baseball comes back out of the lockout. Khalil Mack gets traded. If this happens, don't forget about us.
I would be willing to bet that like Goodell or whoever in the NFL just has like a list of transactions that are waiting to go through. And then like as soon as the news hits, oh wait, we gotta get back out there. Put this one out. Okay, Matt got traded. Okay, Brady's back.
We love it.
Tom Carroll. It was good seeing you. I'm kicking you out now.
Bye, Thom.
Yeah.
Great seeing you, Thom.
He was hanging around the whole time. He really didn't care about the show. He just heard that. And he's like, I got to jump in.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, he's a diehard. So yeah.
Well, I guess he's not going to the 49ers.
Look, I love the passion. I can't even hate on the passion. So.
Thom, you have to turn around, cross out the entire board and just write TB12 on there, and that's it. None of that matters what you just did. All that's a waste of time.
Who you got in your brackets? Tom Brady. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's going to win. He always wins. So, all right. Our thanks to Headchopper from Rotogrinders. Check out his work there. Thanks to all of you that tuned in through Rotogrinders and also through Scores and Odds and through Vegas Insider on our YouTube channel. And again, we're going to have this video up overnight in case you missed any of the conversation with Thom, myself, and Headchopper. So we'll have all of that and the brackets revealed. And
ton of content coming out.
So much. I mean, you got the play-in games Tuesday and Wednesday. So this doesn't start Thursday. This starts Tuesday, and you have games tomorrow too.
Yeah, and it was a daylight savings. So we're just trying to get some sleep at this point.
We sleep in April, late April.
On Sundays. We sleep on Sundays.
We sleep on Sundays, not today.
No.
So, all right. Thom, thank you. And we are all done. We appreciate all of you tuning into this special edition of the Daily Insider. And again, like and subscribe to our videos on our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider. Again, I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for watching. And as always, best of luck with your bets.